Am I the a-hole for hesitating to reconnect with my family after being exonerated for a crime I didn't commit? Before we got to the story, I plan to give away 100 USD to whoever has the best opinion regarding this matter. So stay tuned, and I'll announce the winner in the few next videos. You only have to post your opinion on the comment below and consider to like and subscribe so that you'll not miss the announcement and many other future giveaway. Thanks, and back to the story. I'm a 38-year-old male, was wrongfully convicted of armed robbery when I was 22. Despite my innocence and alibi, a combination of mistaken eyewitness identification, overzealous prosecution, and inadequate legal representation led to my conviction. I was sentenced to 20 years in prison. The first few years were hell. I was angry, depressed, and struggled to adjust to life behind bars. My family initially supported me, visiting regularly, working to appeal my conviction. But as the years went by, their visits became less frequent. By year 5, they had stopped coming altogether. I later learned that my parents had started telling people I was away at school or working overseas. They were embarrassed by my conviction and found it easier to pretend I didn't exist. My younger sister, who was in high school when I was convicted, was forbidden from mentioning me to her friends. Meanwhile, I fought hard to maintain my sanity and prove my innocence. I educated myself in the law library, wrote countless letters to innocence projects and lawyers, and never stopped proclaiming my innocence. Finally, after 12 long years, new DNA evidence exonerated me. I was released at age 34, having lost my entire 20s and early 30s to a mistake. Readjusting to life outside was incredibly difficult. The world had changed so much. I had no job skills, no money, and a huge gap in my resume. Everyday tasks like using a smartphone or self-checkout at the grocery store were baffling. I struggled with PTSD and found it hard to trust anyone. The state awarded me a settlement for my wrongful conviction, which helped me get back on my feet. I got therapy, earned a degree, and slowly began rebuilding my life. I'm now working as an advocate for criminal justice reform and trying to help other wrongfully convicted individuals. Recently, my family reached out, wanting to reconnect. My parents called, crying and apologizing for abandoning me. They said they had always believed in my innocence but couldn't handle the shame and stress of having an incarcerated son. My sister, now married with kids, wants me to meet my nieces and nephews. But here's the thing, they want to act like nothing happened. They've invited me to family gatherings and want to introduce me to their friends as their son who's been away for work. They haven't told my sister's kids about my wrongful conviction. They say they want to protect me from stigma, give me a fresh start with the family. I'm torn. Part of me has longed for my family's love and support for years. But another part is furious that they abandoned me when I needed them most and now want to sweep everything under the rug. The idea of pretending those 12 years didn't happen feels like a betrayal of everything I've been through. I told them I needed time to think, but when I didn't immediately agree, they became upset. My mother cried, saying I was punishing them, and that they were victims too. My father accused me of being bitter and said I should be grateful they want to welcome me back. My sister said I was being selfish and denying her children a relationship with their uncle. Now I'm at a crossroads. I don't know if I should try to rebuild these relationships or if it's better to move on without them. Will I ever truly forgive them for abandoning me? Is it fair of them to ask me to pretend those 12 years never happened? How do I balance my desire for family connection with my need for honesty and acknowledgement of my experiences? What do you think, Reddit? Did I give my family another chance, or am I justified in keeping my distance? How would you handle this situation if you were in my shoes? I'm really struggling with this decision and could use some outside perspective. 6 months later. Thank you all for your thoughtful responses to my original post. Your diverse perspectives gave me a lot to consider as I navigated this complex situation. I wanted to provide an update on what's happened since then. After much reflection and several sessions with my therapist, I decided to have an honest conversation with my family. I invited them to meet me at a neutral location, Quiet Park, where I laid out my feelings and concerns. I explained how their abandonment had affected me, how lonely and betrayed I felt during my years in prison. I told them about the challenges I faced upon release and my ongoing struggles with PTSD and trust issues. Most importantly, I made it clear that I couldn't pretend those 12 years didn't happen. They were a fundamental part of who I am now. To my surprise, once I opened up, so did they. My parents shared their own feelings of guilt, shame, and helplessness. They admitted that pretending I didn't exist was a coping mechanism, one they now realize was deeply hurtful. My sister spoke about her confusion and anger as a teenager, and how she had spent years in therapy dealing with the trauma of losing her brother. It was a long, emotional conversation with lots of tears on all sides. But it was also cathartic. For the first time, we were all being honest about our experiences and feelings. We agreed to try moving forward with rebuilding our relationship, but on the condition that there would be no more lies or pretending. My family promised to be open about my wrongful conviction, starting with telling my sister's children an age-appropriate version of what happened to their uncle. The past 6 months have been a roller coaster. We've had some good moments, family dinners where we've laughed together, parents attending one of my advocacy speeches, playing with my nieces and nephews, but we've also had some major setbacks. Old resentments sometimes flare up, and we've had a few heated arguments that ended with slammed doors and days of silence. We've started family therapy, which has been helpful but also incredibly challenging. It's bringing up a lot of buried emotions and unresolved issues. Sometimes I leave these sessions feeling hopeful. Other times, I question whether trying to rebuild these relationships is worth the emotional toll. My parents have made efforts to be more supportive of my advocacy work, but I can tell they're still uncomfortable when I talk about my time in prison. My sister has been the most consistently supportive, but she's also pushed for faster reconciliation than I'm comfortable with. As for me, I'm still struggling with trust issues. Every time my family cancels plans or is late to a meeting, I find myself spiraling, wondering if they're going to abandon me again. I'm working on this in my individual therapy, but it's a slow process. Now, 6 months into this reconciliation attempt, I find myself at another crossroads. Part of me feels like we're making progress, slowly but surely. Another part wonders if the pain and effort of trying to rebuild these relationships is worth it. Maybe it would be healthier for me to focus on building new connections, rather than trying to repair these damaged ones. So Reddit, I find myself turning to you again for perspective. Do you think I made the right choice in trying to reconcile with my family? Is it realistic to think we can overcome so many years of hurt and betrayal? How do I balance protecting my own mental health with giving my family a chance? For those who have been in similar situations of family estrangement and attempted reconciliation, what advice would you give? I'm still unsure about the path forward. I would greatly appreciate your thoughts and advice. Thank you for being a supportive community during this challenging time in my life.